Hi everybody, this is smooth jazz trumpet player, flugelhornist, trombone player, keyboard player, vocalist, composer, record producer, general dog's body, and chief bottle washer Rick Braun, and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, and you are watching me on Jazz Across the Pond with the Jazz Cat and Mr. G. I hope you enjoy.
Well, what can we say about that opening track? Absolutely mind-blown from Rick's Cafe Live. And, well, let me just start things off. In England, we have an old English saying, to blow one's own trumpet. The definition of this is to talk about oneself or one's achievements, especially in a way that shows that one is proud or too proud of things they've done. Well, our very special guest tonight on this week's Jazz Across the Pond doesn't need to blow his own trumpet, although I dare say he probably will do during the show tonight, as about his amazing career, because I think Mr. G and myself are going to do it for him. We're going to talk about his amazing career and establish everything about him. For tonight's guest is not only a fabulous trumpet player, He also plays flugelhorn, trombone, keyboards. He's a vocalist, composer, and a record producer. And to top it off, he's a really nice guy. Ladies and gentlemen, Jazz Across the Pond is proud to announce and welcome onto our stage tonight the one, the only, Mr. Rick Braun.
Hey guys, Roger,
Hey,
Kevin, good to be with you. It's awesome. Thank you. It's been a while in the making. We had some trouble scheduling because fortunately I've gotten busy again. Life has picked up, and I've been touring, almost weekly. And but thank you for
Awesome.
persevering and having the patience. And about blowing my own horn, it's been said. Well, I say this: humility is the quality that makes me so great.
Yep.
Okay.
Have
We'll
you ever
keep
heard
that
that?
in mind.
By the way, that's a joke. That's not. That's
Otherwise, we've got to change half our questions, Rick. So I'm
No,
glad you
yeah,
clarified.
absolutely.
So.
No, that's
Okay, let's crack straight up. I got a lot to get through tonight. So,
Okay.
born Richard Carl Braun on the 6th of July, 1955, in Allentown, Pennsylvania, USA. Your mother, if our researchers have done their homework correct, your mother was a self-taught pianist and a banjoist. And you played drums at high school and followed your brother in playing the trumpet. In the 1970s, you attended the Eastman School of Music, and whilst there, you studied there, become a member of the Jazz Fusion Band. Rick, would you please tell our followers more about your childhood and your first introduction to music? Plus, is it true, ready, looking around, is it true in your early years, you co-wrote the song Here With Me, which was a top 10 hit for REO Speedwagon?
That is true. That is true. And that was one of the most amazing experiences in my life. You've asked about 40 questions in there that I could just go. That could be the entire interview if I start at the beginning.
Please do.
Yes. Yes to all of that. You got it right. And I started out as a closet trumpet player. I found my older brother's trumpet in the closet of my parents' house when I was 8 years old, and picked it up and had the audacity to put the mouthpiece in and actually blow into it, and a sound came out immediately. Now, you guys probably know that picking up a trumpet and getting a sound out of it doesn't always happen. So from that moment on, I kind of fell in love with the sound of it, the feel of it, just everything about trumpet. I just loved it. And from when I was 8 years old on, I enjoyed that. Now, I wanted to be a drummer. Never actually was a drummer until I had one too many beers on the road with the band War in 1982. And Harold Braun, who was they had two drummers. Harold Braun got off of his drum set. We had two drum sets on the stage. He got off of the drum set and went down in the front to sing. And because I had too many beers at that point, I felt, why not get up on the drums and start playing in the middle of, a concert with War. And they looked at me and nobody said, get the hell off of those drums, pal. I kept playing, and it became a part of the show that I would play drums on that particular song. Not well, but I played drums. The problem was always balancing the beer intake to the right point where I was brave enough to do it and not stupid enough when I was doing it. So, but that's my extent of my drumming career. To talk about the REO Speedwagon song, when I moved to LA, I was in a fusion band called Oracle, and I knew the end was near for them because we started to actually outnumber the audience, which happened with most fusion bands towards the end of that movement. And so I went and I got a job, thankfully, thanks to my friend Sam Trust, who was the head of Lorimar Music in Warner Chapel. And he hired me as a songwriter. And I reported to Linda Perry. Linda Perry was Richard Perry's ex-wife, and she was not an easy person to deal with. But I wrote songs for a living, and I got a paycheck, and it was amazing. And I was writing songs and concurrently playing in bar bands around Los Angeles. And I was playing with a band called Jack Mack and the Heart Attack, and our horn section was We Are On an REO Speedwagon record. So I made good friends with Kevin Cronin right away. He and I became fast friends, and I started playing in a band with him called the Strolling Dudes. And this was basically his alter ego, and we'd play like Love the One You're With and all of these cover songs and just have a great time and go out and play. and I was writing songs. So picture this: I'm hired as a songwriter, playing in a bar band with Kevin Cronin from Mario Speedwagon, and my girlfriend, who was a USC co-ed, I took her to see me play at the Lighthouse in Hermosa Beach. I was playing with another band. She was my girlfriend, and I saw her chatting up this guy in the audience. And I'm watching this happen, and I'm like, what is going on? And she ended up marrying that guy. But the point is, I'm playing my trumpet. I tried to call her the next week. She doesn't pick up. She doesn't answer. So I was either going to step in front of a truck or write a song. I chose wisely to write a song. So I wrote the verses for Here With Me. Maybe it's too late. Maybe you've already changed your mind, turned loving into leaving, and I'm on the outside. And it goes on and on. And I couldn't come up with a chorus. It was through composed like yesterday without a true chorus. And so I went over to Kevin's house and I said, Kevin, I got this song. And I played it for him on the piano, and he had his guitar. And I swear, we got to the part where the chorus should be, and he starts singing, Here With Me, I don't know where you are. But, and all of a sudden, because his wife, and he was just breaking up with his wife, so he also was in a frame of mind to either step in front of a truck or write a song.
Right.
So that's how that came to be. And that was a top 20 hit. And I still am friends with Kevin. I text him and I go, dude. And he goes, dude. And then that might be it, but that's what we do.
So you wound up saving 2 lives. And then the rest of the story is, of course, the song turns into a monster hit. Your ex-girlfriend comes crawling back and you say, it's too late, baby. You had your chance.
No, the part about the ex-girlfriend coming crawling back did not come true. That did not come to pass.
Well, Rick, you've rattled off a lot of names. I mean, you've played with some incredible groups. You've played with Crowded House, with Natalie Cole, Sade, Rod Stewart, Tina Turner. Of course, you mentioned War, which I think may have been the way I heard of you the very first time. I always try to do that with artists. I think actually that was through Peter White. I think the reason I know that, I think it's Peter, because that's Peter. The first time I heard him, he was on L. Stewart Live. Then he wound up working with Boney, and then from Boney, that took me to you. So anyway, long story. But what I do want to ask you, with everybody that you've worked with in those early days, what would you say from all of those collaborations? I mean, was there a life lesson, or was there a career defining moment that you had with any of those artists in that early time, or did that kind of happen a little later on in your career?
I think it was an ongoing process, especially when it came time for me to, what's it called, 50 Feet from Stardom. I was a sideman for all of those years, and I was on the road with Rod Stewart. And when my Beat Street CD came out, and the song Cadillac Slim was a huge success in the United States, and my manager, Steve Chapman. By the way, my whole career is in the hands of an ex-rock and roll drummer, so I think I've done pretty well considering. But Steve Chapman, we're talking about, who played with Poco and Al Stewart, and great guy. But I was with Rod Stewart and got the call that song was a big hit, and I went to Rod and I told Rod, Steve said, you're going to have to decide whether to be a high-paid sideman or take a chance at being an artist. And I went over to Rod's, hotel room and said, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to leave the tour. And he was great. He was absolutely great, and said, wishing you the best, mate. And maybe he was trying to get rid of me anyway. I don't know.
No, I'm sure he probably saw the handwriting on the wall. I mean, for God's sakes, he was hearing you play all that time. So he knew it was coming.
But the life lessons I learned on that particular tour, I mean, of course, we were playing like Wembley Stadium and huge arenas, and watching him on nights when he wasn't at his top form, and how he pulled off a great show regardless. And the similarities, because Rod's voice is always one of those voices where it's like on the verge of disaster, and that's part of the appeal. And there's a lot of similarities with trumpet and voice, because there's only a certain amount of good notes in a horn any given night. Right. So I watched him do shows where he had a hard time just getting a note out, and he got it out, but dialed back, but dialed up on just being a personality, being the personality. And when I had to make that leap from the sideman routine to being the front man, it took a while, and it took some adjustment. But what I took with me always was that lesson of be yourself, give to the audience. You're there to cheer people up. You're there to give them, to entertain them, as well as play the music. And that's the big lesson. I'm grateful to him for that, because he showed me how to do that, you know.
He's an amazing guy. We were I've seen it with my wife. We went to see him live in concert a few years back. An amazing guy. Anyway,
Yeah.
so in 1992, you released your debut album, and it was called Intimate Secrets.
Yes.
Fabulous album. Shortly followed up in 1994, you came out with The Christmas Present and Nightwalk, another great album. Now, you cite your influences and heroes for the likes of Miles Davis, Lee Morgan, Chet Baker, Clark Terry, Tijuana, Dizzy Gillespie, Herb Alpert. With Herb Alpert, when you came out with the album All It Takes, which is a fabulous album, there's a track on there called Tijuana Dance, and it was a track you played with Herb Alpert. It was based on the Herb Alpert, the Tijuana Brass, which was an amazing track. So would you please tell our followers more about your early days and a bit more about your heroes there?
Well, Herb Alpert was my first hero. Of course, when I'm born in 1955, when I was learning trumpet and, probably like 10, 11, 12 years old, the Tijuana Brass dominated AM radio. If you can imagine that, a trumpet player playing kind of popified mariachi music.
Yeah.
Was one of the biggest artists. And of course, Herb and Jerry Moss went on to start A&M Records and had so many, the Carpenters, Aerosmith, they had so many artists that they brought out, and what an incredible human being. I would be up there practicing, and I've always had a good ear, and because Herb's music was very playable, I learned to play along with all of his music. And I remember my mom and the company would come over, and my friends would be by, and they'd say, "Hey man, hey, play the Lonely Bull, play the Lonely Bull. Hey, listen to this, listen to what Rick can do. Check this out, you guys." And it was like, so those were my earliest performances, is basically playing along with those records. And then of course I found Miles Davis, and Miles was probably the most influential trumpet player. Besides Louis Armstrong, I would say.
Yes, thank you. Absolutely.
I would say Louis Armstrong, and I have a wonderful picture of Louis Armstrong that's been in my studio forever. I got it framed and moved it. Otherwise, you'd see Louis in the background right back there. Miles Davis was another big influence because, again, my style of playing, we talked about Arturo earlier, who was a great friend of mine. And Arturo has a full other octave of range beyond what, and then some. Beyond, we were smoking. I'm just going to ramble, okay, guys? That's what I do. I was smoking cigars with Arturo, and we're having some tequila dinner at his house, and he goes, "Hey, Ricky, let me play something for you." And he gets his horn out and starts playing the Carnival of Venice perfectly.
Oh, wow.
And I know he was far from sober. And he played it perfectly, and I had to walk over, and I said, "Stop. You have to stop. You have to stop." So for me, I kind of equate myself with like the Clint Eastwood saying, a man's got to know his limitations.
Right.
And for me, my limitations had to do with range and finding a way to express myself within what I can do. And I think the same held true for Herb Alpert, and Same holds true for Miles Davis, who is not a Dizzy Gillespie or Clark Terry or Arturo. He was not that. He was a lyrical. Same thing with Chet Baker. Chet Baker was a huge influence for me because he was such a lyrical player. I think that's the important thing that I would say for young musicians as well. You have to listen to people, you have to listen and get your influences, and you have to absorb what you can. But the most important thing you need to do is develop your own voice from those influences, and don't be copying them exactly. You need to develop your own sound, your own voice, so people hear 4 bars of your music and they know it's you,
Perfectly said. Well, you were saying about Santoval. He was our guest a few weeks ago, and he graciously invited us into the studio. We had a fabulous interview. Yeah, fabulous. Kevin,
Well, Rick, when you talk about telling a young artist you have to discover your own voice, your voice is definitely distinctive. But now what you've done with your latest project, which is obviously self-titled, is you have released a series of songs that have just so impressed me. I think it is probably your best project to date for a lot of reasons, and we'll discuss that. But just so that our audience will know, we're going to take a short break. And we're going to listen to an exceptional track from Rick Braun's 2022 self-titled project, Rick Braun, which celebrates 30 years of solo projects since his 1992 debut project, as Roger mentioned, Intimate Secrets. I think you're going to enjoy, there's a little touch of Eastern mysticism in the song we're going to play. So we're going to listen to one of Rick's little exotic, stunning songs called Turkish, and we'll be right back.
What can I say about that? As Kevin was saying, it is the most wonderful album. It's called Rick Braun. It's a self-titled album, and it's a bit of Turkish. Now, it's a brilliant album, and I'll be right in saying that the reason the recording, the idea, but the self-titled album was co-written. The whole thing written, co-written, all the songs. There's no covers on it at all. It's all original pieces, and a lot of that was down to COVID and the restrictions that happened. So, what's the backstory behind the album, Rick?
Well, I think everybody got creative during COVID, and it was such a cathartic thing for me to come into the studio and start writing this music. And I think because usually when I make a record, it has to balance between touring, and the most challenging thing of making a record is I bring it to a point, and then I'll have a tour, and I'll go out and I have to say, okay, where was I? And I'll come back. What I enjoyed most about making this record during COVID is I got to just sit there and concentrate and really I'd pick it up day after day after day. And so it was more of a continuous process rather than balancing touring and recording. And fortunately, towards the end of making the record, the restrictions lifted a bit and people were comfortable to come over and play. And I've got so many wonderful musicians on this, including a 10-piece string section of LA's Kathleen Robertson put together. When I heard these people playing in the studio, and they were gracious about it, allowed us to double track. And those of you who don't know music, double tracking is when you double up what you're doing, so it has the audio appearance of twice as many people, but it's twice as much work for the people in the studio. So they did that, and oh my God, the perfection of their performance. I would just solo the string track and just sit there and just have a glass of wine and just go, oh my God, this is on my record. And that song Turkish is the strings on that and the arrangement. Nick Lane helped bring that to its level. That, and Nick Lane, of course, did a lot of arranging for Maynard Ferguson, and he's a wonderful dear old friend. We were in Rod Stewart's band together, and he conducted the session. So it reminds me of some of those CTI records. That track in particular does.
Right. Well, I tell you, and you've worked with so many impressive people, and the new project definitely is a stellar group of guest artists that you've got. I'm just going to run up a couple of names, but you've got Daryl Williams, you've got Jimmy Haslip, you've got Kenny Wilde, who I haven't heard since his days with Seawind. That was a big band that I liked, along with Passport. I had to mention that. But you've got a lot of great artists on the Eric Valentine. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. Lenny Castro. But you've already alluded to it. I think that and this is what I wrote, so I'm not speaking extemporaneously. I think that the most notable addition to the project was the 10-piece live string section that's arranged and conducted by Nick Lane, as you just mentioned. I find that the addition of these string voicings gives the project a full, rich texture that adds just the right amount of depth and balance to your sound. I mean, it really completes it. So Rick, my question, was the addition of a string section in that newest project driven by the great experience you had with producer Philippe Sace and the strings that backed your Sings with Strings album, or was it something altogether different?
It has a lot to do with that. I mean, there's nothing like the sound of real musicians playing in a room together. There's an energy that it brings to any project that you can't duplicate with synthesized strings, and the emotionality of it. In Color of Love, there's a section that's kind of reminiscent of a Beatles kind of a modulation in there where that happens, and you just can't do that without real strings. Right. And it was Philippe Sace, of course, is one of my heroes. He produced one of my favorite recordings of all time, Gato Barbieri's Que Paso record, and he's a dear friend, and he did a great job on that record. So I think it had a lot to do with it that I needed to have that sound on this record to complete it. Yeah.
It was a stroke of genius. I think that really, for me, is what makes that album so incredibly good.
And it's not just any string section. This particular bunch of people each one of them could play. I mean, there wasn't, I mean, sometimes you think in a string section there, you know, there's always somebody who can hide in there because there's so many of them sometimes. But these guys all pulled their weight and played magnificently. Yeah.
Well, it's a fabulous album. Now, we opened up the show with Rick's Cafe and a fabulous piece there, the Color of Love. It's about, now, you've actually, with Jazz Across the Pond, you've actually appeared twice on our opening tracks. You appeared with Rick's Cafe with Peter White, when we interviewed Peter White, and there were you at the opening of the video, and that, so all our followers me go, well, when are you going to interview Rick Braun? We went, it's coming up, don't worry. And of course, just recently we've interviewed the wonderful Kurt Whalum, and of course now with Kurt Whalum, so this is a two-part question because BWB is a big part of your life as well. First part of my question, though, can you elaborate, tell us a bit more about the RCL? We want to learn more about that, and then hopefully you can elaborate and go on to BWB. A lot of letters going on there, but you break it down for us, sir.
That's okay.
Right. RCL, Rick's Cafe Live. And I don't know, you can't see the door. There's a door with the Rick's Cafe Live logo there. But Rick's Cafe Live evolved because, of course, again, because of the pandemic. And we did 60 some shows, some of them just me when things got really tough, some of me playing to track. Some when a lot of them when we had a full band over in my living room, and my wife and my son and my daughter were so incredibly supportive. And I'll tell you, when musicians came over, and of course we exercised caution as best we could. And when the musicians came over during the pandemic, they were so incredibly grateful to have a place to go and play together, and the joy and the energy that if you go back and watch, and they're all out there for better or for worse, because there are some very less than perfect performances from me, but they are preserved for all posterity. So, you know, it is what it is. But the joy that we had in the room, and the joy that people have let me know how much it meant to them during the pandemic to have that to do on a Saturday night. So, I mean, I had a guy almost get hit by a car running across the street just to let me know in tears how much RCL meant to him during the pandemic, that he and his wife would get a bottle of wine, they'd order in some food, and you know, I had and they would make a night of it. I've had many people in Germany. I was walking down in this little village that there's a winery there that I like to, and I knocked on the door, and they didn't, the door was locked, and I'm going back to this tiny little village, and this woman opens the shuttered window and she yells out, Rick Braun, RCL. Wunderschön. And it's like, it was this very special time. It brought our family closer together. My son and his friend did all of the video, and they did all of the thumbnails, all of the graphic arts to promote the show. And at a time where I probably wouldn't have seen 10 minutes of my son, we got to know each other, and he found a talent that he didn't know he had, you know?
There you go. Awesome.
Okay, so BWB, sir.
Yes. Well, there's a poster right here. I don't know how well you can see it.
That. Yeah.
Myself and Kirk and Norman from the Cape Town Jazz Festival, which was one of the most memorable shows I've ever played with BWB. And yeah, Kirk and Norman are two very special people. Kirk was just on my my river cruise. We went down the Rhone River with AMA Cruise Lines, and we had a great time. People came out. I called them astronauts because COVID is still out there, and you know, but these people came out, and we had a beautiful time. BWB, I don't really know if we're gonna have any more BWB concerts, but that page in my life, I will treasure it always, and the experiences that I got to have with them were exceptional. And I love those guys. Love them both.
Well, especially that second project, because those were all the songs that you guys had composed, which is brilliant. So
yeah.
But you know, you talk about COVID and getting back out on the road, and I tell you what, I took a look. Roger asked me to take a look at your tour dates. Oh my gosh! Let me. I'm going to try to just. I know we don't have much time, but I'm going to try to touch on some of these, because I know you have a fan base that is just chomping at the bit to see you. So I'm going to throw some locations and some dates out for people to be able to catch Rick. So you personally are doing 11 shows, and in 2023 you've got 2 river cruises coming up. We'll touch on all that.
Yes.
But you've got 3 shows in California. You're going to be at Fish Camp, in Fish Camp on October the 2nd, in Irvine, October the 7th, and Temecula on October the 8th. So just for everybody to know that that show is going to be at Temecula is going to be at the Thornton Winery with Richard Elliott.
Yeah.
You're also going to do 2 shows just outside of Chicago and Rosemont. Those will be October 15th, 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock show. Then you go to Buffalo, New York with Richard. You're going to be in New Haven, Connecticut with Richard. You're going to be at the Hilton Daytona Beach Oceanfront Resort. Tough gig. That's going to be on November the 3rd, and again, that's going to be with Richard. And then the real tough break you got coming up, and I feel sorry for you. November the 7th, you're going to have to go with Richard down to Mexico to do Warren Hill's Cancun Jazz Festival.
That's going to be a real grind.
I'm certain. Now, the other aspect of it is this year, again, you're going to be joining Dave Koz and Friends for his 25th anniversary tour. That is 24 shows in 23 cities. So I'm encouraging.
I didn't agree to that. I did not agree to that.
Well, I'll tell you what, when we interviewed him last week, I told him I was sweating bullets when I looked at that schedule. But I'm not going to touch on everything, but you guys, people will know where you're going to be. You're going to be in Atlanta. You're going to do 5 shows in Florida. You've got 4 shows you're going to be doing in the Mid-Atlantic region. So you're going to have 2 shows in Virginia, 1 in West Virginia, 1 in North Carolina. You go to the Rust Belt. You guys are going to be in Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, and 2 shows in Ohio. Then you're going to slip down and do a show in Texas and Arizona. And then you're going to have a string of 7 shows in California. Now, what's interesting, and maybe I don't know whether this is correct or not, but on December the 31st, Rick Braun, Richard Elliott, Mindy Aber, Chris Walker, and Rebecca Jade are doing a gig on New Year's Eve. And
Dave Koz is part of that as well. It's for the last 15 years, I've hosted a New Year's Eve show, and it's a benefit for partial proceeds go towards autism. And
right.
And you know, yeah, we have had a great time, and this is our farewell gig there at in Tucson, and it's a beautiful event with a golf tournament, 2 nights of music, and I'm so glad to have my friends joining me for that, and I hope all of you do too.
Yeah, well, Dave's very excited about that particular gathering. So you've also got some of the things, your 2023 schedule. I know you're going to be at the Harrison Opera House in Norfolk, Virginia, which is just about two hours from me. But I wanted to ask you about, number one, are you going to be doing the 2023 cruise, the Dave Koz and Friends at Sea? Are you doing that one?
Yes, and that's 3 weeks. I think we leave in it's around Spain. We leave out of
Barcelona to Lisbon, and so. But that's 3 legs, and just so everybody knows, it's already sold out. But those that are going, you heard it here. Rick is going to be performing on that cruise, and then you've got 2 cruises, the Rick Braun's River Cruise Getaway, that you're going to be doing July the 25th through August the 8th. That's 2 legs there. Should people, are tickets available for that at this point?
I would like to let people know that we still have cabins available, and just so you know, it's on AMA Waterways, and AMA is a very exclusive, wonderful cruise line, and it's a ship. There's only about 165 people on the boat, so it's very intimate. It's like a floating nightclub. And my guests, there has been a change in the lineup, so my guests are Dave Koz, Vincent Ngala, and Richard Elliott will be joining us. Jonathan Butler dropped out, but Richard graciously agreed to jump in and take his place. So there's no let up there. And we're going down the Mosel River, which is of course in Germany, and it's the Hansel and Gretel type, very quaint area of Germany. It's very sweet.
Is Jeffrey Osborne still going to be part of the show?
Jeffrey is not. No, Jeffrey's the latest lineup. Yeah, sadly, the latest lineup is Richard Elliott, Dave Cause, Vincent Ngala, and myself. Yeah, that's it.
Incredible
Wow.
quartet.
Hopefully you got all those tour dates there. Very amiss. The UK's not on there, but I'm sure we'll address that at some stage.
We
Now,
will.
Ed, before the show started, before Ed, we went live and that, Rick was very, very kind to play a wonderful track. So as you're watching this show, don't switch up for the end of the show. Keep watching, because there's a little bit of a treat. He actually fabulous, very graciously played from his album, the wonderful album, Can You Feel It? And it's Silk. And just so keep watching at the end of that. Rick, we can't thank you enough for playing that track for us. And that was wonderful for our followers.
It's a pleasure, Roger. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, now, very quickly, because time is running out now. There's a host. I mean, we've got the BWB albums and that. There's a whole, I mean, I love all the albums. I love Crossroads. I think that's a fabulous album. I do love that album. But where can our followers purchase your album, sir?
It's of course all of the normal outlets: Amazon, iTunes, CD Baby, all of those. They're available in all of the normal outlets. Of course, it's available for download as well, which is the path. I see your massive CD collection behind you. That's quite impressive, and I think I have those same CD racks here in my studio in the other room. But mine are not as full as that.
This wall goes on and on. It's called my den of iniquity. I'm allowed in here, and I get lost in here. And you got your own selection here. You got just over past the camera there. You got your whole pile. I've had to pull them out to put them on the desk here tonight, and they're very pride and pray placed on the wall there.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean the normal places, and I would encourage everybody. You come to my Facebook page and join me there on my official fan page, and rickbraun.com is my website, and that's where you can find out how to get your cabin on the river cruise. Yeah,
fabulous.
There you go.
Rick, Kevin and myself can't thank you enough for taking time out. We know you're touring, you're very, very busy, and we finally, after all these time, we finally got you to come and join us on the show. Thank you, sir, for joining us on Jazz Across the Pond.
Thank you both, and thank you for being patient with me. We did, if the folks knew how long we've been planning this, I think they go, well, you guys are you've got a lot of perseverance there. So thank you for your patience. I appreciate it.
Kevin.
Well, the reason we've been so patient, Rick, is because we love your music. We love everything that you've done. You've been part of some wonderful projects, and it was our pleasure, and we thank you very much for being with us today.
All right, you guys have a wonderful day. And again, thank you so much. And thank you to all of our fans out there who keep us doing what we do, because we love the music, and we only get to do it because you love the music.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jazz Across the Pond with Kevin, with Rick Braun. Take care. Look after yourself. Bye-bye.
Hey everybody, I want to play this song for you right now. This is a song that actually was the first song from my Can You Feel It CD. It's the first song that I wrote for this particular project, and I came down on my pajamas, put up the microphone, and started to play. And sometimes the best songs just come out that simply. And the point is, when during the pandemic, and when I was asking people for requests, this song never really saw the light of day at radio. But for some odd reason, this particular song got more requests than any other song that I have ever written. So I'm going to do it for you now. It's called Silk. This is for all the people who, if I'd asked for a request, they'd ask for this song. Here it comes. So.
Thank you.